Her phone was stolen, and she was stuck with the charges.
I got another bill for $15,000.
But cell phone companies and the governor say there's a law that protects consumers.
I don't feel protected at all.
So why does this keep happening?
Nothing has been enforced.
Are cell phone companies ignoring the law? And now, a continuing CBS 5 Consumer Watch special investigation, the wireless runaround.
Hello, I'm Jeanette Pavini. Thank you for joining us. 3 in 4 Americans own one. There are now more cell phones than landlines in the U.S., and most who have them say they can't live without them. Cell phone companies expect to rake in $120 billion in revenue this year alone, with no limit in sight. But the other side of those skyrocketing profits is growing consumer complaints, confusing contracts, spotty service, overbilling. Tonight, we'll show you how the wireless industry fights regulation and consumer protection with the help of one of its best friends, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and how easy it is for cell phone users to become trapped in the wireless runaround. Eileen Pereira has the kind of relationship with her cell phone company that many people might envy.
They, want to make sure that I'm happy.
Her service is usually top-notch, but in case there is a problem, she has a direct line to the corporate office where she gets quick answers.
I feel like I have a person at the other end of the phone, someone who is interested in what I have to say.
So how did Eileen get her phone company to behave so nicely? It wasn't easy, and we'll tell you more in a moment. But first, consider the case of another cell phone customer who's not so happy.
So I'm just stressing about it.
When Pamela Woodson's cell phone was stolen, she reported it to T-Mobile and to police the next day. But by then, she says, thieves had already made $1,800 worth of calls, and her wireless carrier was not helpful.
They said, if you know who took your phone, I suggest you get the money from them.
T-Mobile billed her for the fraudulent calls, plus hundreds of dollars in late fees and interest. When Pamela disputed the charges, T-Mobile terminated her service and sent her to a collection agency.
It's just like, on top of everything, they're just, they stole your phone. Well, here, let me ruin your credit and take all your money too.
I personally felt that it was unfair for me to pay for a criminal's act.
And then there's the case of Wendy Nguyen. In spring of 2005, she had no idea her cell phone had been stolen right before she went on vacation. When she returned, Singular sent her a bill for $26,000.
The supervisor then told me, well, maybe you can file for bankruptcy.
Wendy and Pamela are among dozens of wireless customers who have complained to CBS 5 Consumer Watch that they were billed for calls made on their stolen cell phones. They felt powerless when their phone companies told them that the small print in their contracts made them totally responsible for all calls made until they reported their phones missing. Do you feel Wendy should have been responsible? Wireless industry spokesman John Walls.
As a customer, I'm responsible for my device. I sure am. I need to know where it is, just like my car keys.
So if your cell phone contract says pay up, customers are stuck with the bill, right?
There are agencies and there are laws in place to help them.
John Dunoff is California Deputy Attorney General for Consumer Law. He says most people don't realize that state law protects them from being charged for calls they did not authorize, which includes lost or stolen phones.
The Public Utilities Code does include a provision that prohibits anyone from placing a fraudulent or false charge on a telephone bill.
So is that law somehow unclear? You be the judge. A telephone bill may only contain charges for products or services the purchase of which the subscriber has authorized. So does the small print in those cell phone contracts supersede California law?
No, never.
What's more, state law gives consumers the right to dispute unauthorized charges without penalty, so long as they can show evidence that they did not make the calls. But that can be a problem too, because guess who decides whether that evidence is valid or not? Your cell phone company. Pamela Woodson believes her company was not a fair judge.
Yemen, 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 Yemen.
Most of the fraudulent calls on her bill were made to Yemen in the Middle East, a place she's never been or called before. And because terrorists have sometimes used Yemen as a base, the FBI brought Pamela in for a 3-hour interview.
The FBI, they were great. They were concerned. They asked questions.
The FBI quickly cleared Pamela of making those calls. But that wasn't good enough for T-Mobile. They still wanted Pamela to pay.
Most of them are Guatemala, Honduras.
In Wendy Nguyen's case, she sent Singular copies of her plane tickets and passport showing that she was in Vietnam, while her phone was being used in San Francisco. Hundreds of calls to places she had never dialed before. How did Singular respond to her evidence? They sent her to a collection agency.
They kept on saying, well, that's your fault, this is up to you. You should have known that it was stolen.
It took months, but Singular and T-Mobile finally waived all charges against Wendy and Pamela, and then only after CBS 5 Consumer Watch contacted the companies. T-Mobile declined an interview but issued this statement. T-Mobile is happy to have worked with Ms. Woodson to find a solution for her stolen cell phone, including credit for fraudulent charges. We also talked to Singular spokeswoman Lauren Gardner earlier last year about Wendy's $26,000 bill.
Why does it take a TV station getting involved to help customers like Wendy?
Actually, we started working with Wendy the day she called us about her situation, and it does take time in a situation such as this because it's so unusual.
How is it that Singular can say we were working with her to me as a customer? If someone's working with me, they're not sending me to collections, they're not telling me to file bankruptcy, they're returning my calls, they're not putting me on hold. I mean, how is that working with a customer?
We regret any inconvenience our customers have if we haven't handled the situation to our best.
What we wanted to know, are cell phone companies breaking the law by charging customers for fraudulent calls?
It's one of the things we're looking at. We're interested in looking at their contractual provisions and whether they are telling people that they have any rights at all.
Even customers who do abide by their contracts can run into trouble, which brings us back to Eileen Pereira.
They, want to make sure that I'm happy.
She's happy now, but not long ago, it was a different story.
We had gone on a trip to Europe.
Last August, she was targeted by thieves at a sidewalk cafe.
They got my whole purse with my phone and everything in it.
Eileen immediately did everything right.
I made a police report. I called my credit card company. I called to disconnect the phone.
Sprint said they'd take care of it, but
they did not take care of it.
In fact, when Eileen got home from Europe, Sprint sent her a bill for $15,000 for calls made after she notified Sprint that her phone was stolen.
They told me that they did not have a record of my call.
But Eileen had a record of that call made on her cousin's phone, and over the next several weeks, she kept meticulous notes of her follow-up calls, trying to get Sprint to remove the charges.
I never got a call back.
But she did get another bill, adding $847 in late charges. Eventually, Sprint told her the issue was being handled by their fraud department. But when she called yet again to check on the status, she was told,
there is no such thing as a fraud department.
So what's going on here? What we discovered in our investigation is an industry that is virtually unregulated, often making its own rules. But is there anyone protecting consumers? When we come back, one group that promises to help cell phone users, but may instead be a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I'll tell you more about how Eileen Pereira turned the tables on her wireless company.